And welcome to another edition of No Pad Sports Talk. I am one of your hosts, JD.
And I'm Steve.
And we're going to have a little bit of fun today.
We're going to have a little bit of fun. This is the early edition of pre-free agency,
pre-combine
mock draft.
Yeah. And obviously, look, I mean, it's pre-everything, right? Like rankings are going to go up, go down as free agents, leave the team, come into the team. Positions might get prioritized. So, okay, just keep that in mind, right? And depending on your own personal opinion or which outlet you look at, whether it's PFF, PFN, or any of the other millions of websites out there that rank prospects, they're all going to be different based on which website you look at. So, again, just keep all that in mind too, right? For our mock draft, we're going to be using PFN. And so, we just want to have some fun with this. That's all, right? Just a little bit of fun. Let us know what you guys think. And since we are brothers, we're a little competitive. So comment who you think has the better draft, all right? We got to know. We got to know what you think. Who had the better draft? Now, we didn't talk during the draft or anything, right? We just took it, and now we're going to compare. I don't know who he took. He doesn't know who I took.
No. And I have two that I'm going to talk about, I guess, because, technically
I have to beat me. That's what he's trying to say.
That's what it is. Well, I have three if I wanted to really be.
Well, there we go. So before we get into the draft, though, brother, look, we're both Lions fans. We watched every game. We even streamed live a couple of our reactions and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So look, I don't think it's any secret as far as their weaknesses, their strengths. But just out of curiosity, like going into the draft, what was your thinking? What did you want to prioritize?
I was prioritizing the defensive side of the ball, I guess. I know we need cornerbacks. All right, we need some kind of shutdown cornerback. I think some of the ones that are available in the first round, we're gonna have to trade up to get. But when I did mine, I was kind of actually all over. 1, 3. Well, no, I stayed pretty much on the defensive side of the ball, I guess. So that's kind of where I was at. I felt like overall we weren't getting enough pressure consistently. The defensive backfield wasn't great, and that's kind of where I spent my time, at least on one of mine.
I think that was fair, right? Like, besides Hutchinson, I think the most sacks a player had was 5, and that was Lee McNeil, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And I think after that, we had like maybe 2 sacks was the third most. Like, as far as sacks go, we didn't really get a lot of sacks as a team. We did get, I think, the third most pressures out of any team in the NFL, but it just didn't translate into sacks. And we need to take that next step as a defense to translate that into sacks and loss of yards. And then secondly, obviously, is going to be the defensive backs. And personally, from my opinion, I'm also going to target defense in these mock drafts. It's going to take a lot for me to use a pick on a non-defensive player as far as the first round pick. It's going to take a lot. Look, cornerback is deep this year. There's a lot of good cornerbacks. And of course, you got some of the top ones. The top ones are great. Don't get me wrong. The first 3 off the board are going to be amazing. But unlike other years, I don't really necessarily think that the drop off in talent between, like, say, the top 3 and then the next 3 is all that great. There's definitely a drop off. I'm just saying, I don't think that it's a huge drop off like we've seen in the past.
Which is why I think some of those, quarterbacks like Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix, like those 3 guys have an opportunity to slide into the first round.
Second round, you mean?
No, I think some of them, or a couple of them, are going to end up in the first round.
You think so?
Yep.
I think there's gonna be a lot sliding into the second round. I guess
Look,
that's where we disagree. I don't think McCarthy's gonna be a first rounder. I think he's gonna slide. I think Penix has a chance to slide. Nix has a chance to slide.
no, yep. While I understand why you say that, I think teams are going to prioritize that quarterback position, and they're going to be looking for somebody. I think if the Patriots don't take Jaden Daniels with the 3rd overall pick, I think that they're going to trade back into the first round at the end with Kansas City and take one of the other 3 quarterbacks.
Well, I agree with you for sure that Williams, May, and Daniels will probably be gone in the first round, right? Yep. 100% they're gone in the first round. I think it all depends then with McCarthy, Nix, and Penix Jr. as far as where teams are going to have them go. I wouldn't be surprised if all 3 slide into the second round, though.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't be surprised, but, I've seen J.J. McCarthy go into the Raiders, I think, at the 2nd overall pick in the second round. I've seen some of those, Bo Nix, Penix, they were all in the second round, but I've also seen them jump up into the first round. So depending on, who you're looking at, it just depends.
Yep.
I think the biggest domino currently is Chicago holds all the cards. Not only because they're the 1st overall pick, right? But if they decide to stick with Justin Fields, which I think, in my opinion, while I'm not a huge Justin Fields fan, right?
Yeah.
I still think he's the best option of all the 3, the top 3 quarterbacks that they're looking at, possibly taking. And I say that because he's already got the experience at the next level. I think if you go in and you bring up get him a receiver, right? Or they trade down and trade out and pick up a couple of picks because someone's going to trade up, right? I think if you can get him some weapons on offense, he's going to be a better quarterback.
So what I've been hearing anyways is Bears are definitely trading Fields. Yep. And it sounds like Carolina might bite from, again, rumors.
Right.
So they're probably going to go quarterback, and they're probably going to go Williams. I did hear a rumor that there was an unnamed team that actually has J.J. McCarthy as their 2nd best quarterback in the draft. So
it's hard to not like J.J. McCarthy for 2 reasons. One, he played at Michigan, right? So he's played some big.
That's a reason for you.
It's a reason for me. But he only lost 1 game.
Yeah.
Right? And whether you call him a game manager or not, he can make the throws. I think the biggest thing that hurts J.J. McCarthy is his frame. Right? He's going to have to bulk up in order to not get hurt. Right? And while I don't think he's that top level, he's definitely in the top 5 quarterbacks that are coming out in this draft. To me, I'm a Drake May fan. I think he provides, his game translates better to the NFL. And I think that if Chicago's going to go and get a quarterback, I think that's who they're going to take. That's just me.
Yeah, obviously this early in it, it's really hard to tell who's going to go where.
My thing with Williams, though, if you look at some of his games at the end of the season, throughout this last year, I don't feel like he gave everything he had. Right? Some of and you can chalk it up to immaturity, whatever, right? But I wasn't super impressed, right? I just wasn't, especially coming off of a Heisman Trophy win, right? And I get you don't have the same team 2 years in a row. I just felt like What's the he's a crybaby.
All right.
I guess that's kind of my impression. It's about him, and it's not going to be about the team. So that's just my impression of what I've seen on the field on the sideline. If you look at some tape going back, not just stuff on the field, you got to look at the stuff that happens off the field.
Well, all I can say is, look, the 3 years that he played, I know he wasn't a starter in 21, but out of the 3 years that he played, right, he yards per attempt was always over 9 or more. Yep. He always had a great touchdown interception ratio from a 21-4 in 2021. Of course, 2022 was monster with 42 touchdowns to 5 picks.
Yep.
And then last year 30-5. Like, he's never thrown more than 5 picks in a season.
Mm-hmm. So he protects the ball.
He protects the ball well, right? And so he makes obviously good decisions when throwing the ball. Mm-hmm. And he always has. I think he's one of the worst quarterbacks when it comes to throwing under pressure. I think that's what hurts him the most. And I'm a little worried necessarily as far as like taking him. For that'd be my biggest worry, taking him first overall if I had that pick, was Correct. Just the pressure.
Yeah.
Now if he's has clean pocket, the guy is one of the better passers in college football. But
well, I could be a good passer if I had a clean pocket.
And all the other quarterbacks in the draft, I believe, let me say all the other quarterbacks, all the other top quarterbacks in the draft.
Yep.
Drake May, Jaden Daniels, etc. They're so much better throwing. I would put JJ McCarthy better under pressure.
Right.
So again, it's just me. I think Bo Nix is probably the most composed under pressure, personally.
Correct.
From what I've seen.
And Jaden Daniels, to me, he's a guy that, if you look at what he did at LSU last year, I mean, he just put that team on his back and willed his way to wins, right? And the wins weren't there. I think they got 8. They were 8-4. But he still got the Heisman, and to me, he's basically Justin Fields Jr. When you look at what he does, like, and what he did for his team. That's what Justin Fields did for Chicago this year, right? So I assume that they're not going to want to go back and do exactly the same thing. I mean, Chicago, like, drafting a same similar type of player. And, there was a big thing about Caleb Williams because they were trying to get, Chicago was trying to get Kingsley as their offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. And actually, it sounded like they had him, but he ended up going to Washington. So who knows now what's going to happen there, right? And Washington could end up with him.
I would personally, again, this. I don't know how much of a hot take this is going to be for everybody, but I would not put Caleb Williams as my QB1 in this draft personally. Caleb Williams would not be my QB1.
No. To me, and I Bryce Young might be down the road, might be a viable quarterback. But if you look at what he did in Carolina, they weren't a great team, right? I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't put good quarterbacks don't go to great teams, right? Chicago's got a little bit more to offer than Carolina, and the reason Chicago's got 100%. It is because of the trade, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've never been a huge fan of starting rookie quarterbacks.
I know.
CJ Stroud proved me, he's like an anomaly, right? There are some of those that, seem to do well and, even under pressure. So I'm just, yeah. Caleb Williams could end up being the Bryce Young next year.
Yeah. I think he has a chance to. I think, man, it's so tough to say, but right now, just sitting today, right now, if you look at all 6 of the top quarterbacks, Williams, May, Daniels, McCarthy, Nix, and Penix Jr.,
mm-hmm.
I do think that Williams has probably the best chance to disappoint. I don't want to say bust. I want to say disappoint.
Right. Disappoint.
Right?
Yeah. I think that's reasonable, right? And of all of those 5, I think Bo Nix is probably going to be the one that stands out the most long term.
I think Bo Nix is more prototypical. But Jaden Daniels, I think, has the highest ceiling.
Well, yes. But again, it's about what's he going to be able to do when he gets to the next level like this, right? So it's always going to be about.
So a little bit of a quarterback talk, but all right, let's look at the draft. That's what we told everybody we we're going to do. We already drafted our players. Again, let us know who's drafted like the best out of the 7 my brother is going to tell you about because he needs that many. Out of the 1 I'm going to tell you about. So
he had JD. Don't let JD fool you. He actually had one, but he didn't save it, and it was.
I actually like that one better, by the way.
And it was a really good draft.
It was a really good draft. I like that one better than this one, but I got a lot of the same players. But I'll tell you about it as we go through it. So,
okay.
All right, brother. I'll let you go first.
All right. So,
pick 29.
I had 2 PFN mocks, and then I did one on this mock draft simulator, NFL mock draft database simulator, right? So with the mock draft one, I ended up with Braylon Trice, the edge rusher out of Washington. And then with my 2 PFN ones, I got Byron Murphy out of Texas, the defensive tackle, and Graham Barton, the offensive guard out of Duke.
Okay.
So obviously the Graham Barton one being an offensive player, I was looking at value at that point, and I was thinking about what, Jonah Jackson, Graham Glasgow, like some of the players that we may or may not get back, and trying to fill those holes. So that's why I went with Barton. He's kind of a beast when you look at his measurables. So.
Okay. I say I probably went a little more, probably what most people would look for as far as in this coming draft. Again with PFN, Kool-Aid McKinstry fell to me, so I gobbled him up. Kool-Aid McKinstry is now a Detroit Lion.
If he had fallen to me, that would have been an easy pick, right? But it didn't happen. Like I probably did that PFN mock draft 6 or 7 times, and Kool-Aid McKinstry never fell.
And the 2 times I did it, he fell both times.
Yeah.
So, and that's actually going to be, kind of what we're talking about as far as the quarterbacks go. The more quarterbacks that go in the first round, the better chance we have of getting one of those top tier quarterbacks, right?
Exactly.
So, I'm all about it. But Kool-Aid McKinstry,
if I had to give it to you, you win first
the draft.
You win round 1.
That wins me the entire draft. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
All right. What you got for pick 61?
Pick 61. The mock draft database, I went with Zach Frazier. He's an interior offensive lineman from West Virginia. And then I got Cooper Beebe, offensive guard out of Kansas State. Or actually, I had Chris Jenkins fall. So I thought that was a great pick. So being an interior defensive lineman, I think the interior defensive line could use some help. So it actually can kind of help with your edge rusher. So even if you get a mediocre guy on the edge during free agency, or you just use what we've got, right? Having some push up the middle is going to allow those edge rushers. And even if you start blitzing linebackers, you're going to be able to get home a little better. So
I did hear a rumor that the Lions are going to be targeting Brian Burns in free agency. So, again, this is before free agency, so we have to go with what as a team is right now because we don't know what's going to happen.
Correct. Yep.
Now, in the first one I did, Trice from Washington fell to me, and I gobbled him up. I think Trice would be a good complement on the outside to Aiden Hutchinson. Mm-hmm. But he was taken up in the one I'm reading off. He was taken up in this time when I redid it. And I too went with Chris Jenkins. I'm not as much of a homer as my brother is, but I do believe that Chris Jenkins is one of the better defensive tackles in this draft. And the fact that he's there as at pick 61. Again, if Trice was there, I'd go Trice, right? But he
Right.
wasn't. Jenkins was. I went Jenkins. And I'm not mad about the pick. Jenkins is a great talent, and I think he'd be a very good defensive tackle on the next level. So I'm okay with that pick personally. So,
yep.
Pick 73.
All right. So I went with the safety out of Georgia, Javon Bullard.
Javon Bullard, yeah. Okay.
Yep. And then I also I went, so I got Michael Hall Jr., defensive tackle. I kind of went back-to-back tackles on this one.
Okay.
But I also have Jeremiah Trotter Jr., linebacker from Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that would be, he was an interesting pick being at 73, but I'm like getting young.
He's one of those guys that gets moved all over. Clemson always has those linebackers. They love a linebacker that can play slot, play safety, play inside.
Exactly.
And he kind of gets moved all over the place. So even though I like him as a player, the last couple guys that was in that position that got drafted hasn't really translated at the NFL. Because I too looked at him, I too thought about him, and that's the only reason I didn't take him. Was that same reason? Is they just didn't really translate to the NFL.
So he wasn't he was a jack of all trades, but we'll see, right? I mean, they could maybe make him a down, coming off the edge.
So for this pick for me, a lot of the players I thought might have been here were gone. I was kind of hoping Devondre Sweat would also drop. Of course, he didn't. I don't expect him to, but I think that he would be an awesome steal at this point in time. Michael Hall Jr. was also on my list to potentially get. I know he's more of a pass rush defensive tackle. And with me already taking Chris Jenkins and already having Lee McNeil, who is a stud, I didn't want to go back-to-back defensive tackles specifically for that reason. But I did take another cornerback here because as bad as our cornerbacks have played, as talent deficient as what it is, I thought that we could use another cornerback here because the other players that were available, I didn't like to take in this spot. So I thought the best value and the best talent in this pick was going to be Chris Abrams-Drain, the cornerback out of Missouri.
Yeah. Yep. I've had him in one of my other drafts, but not currently in this draft.
Yeah, I think he has a good chance, again, his game to translate into the NFL. 92.
Pick 92. So my two PFN picks, I got on one. So I ended up with Chris Jenkins fell to 92 in one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of those deals where I got to get him, right? Even though I picked up Byron Murphy. But the other one I have Devontae Walker, receiver out of North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure what's going to happen with Josh Reynolds this offseason. And, having a bigger body, 6'2", 205, somebody who can stretch the field a little bit too. So I went with him. And then my last one, again, I went homer. Junior Colson, linebacker out of Michigan.
Yeah, that's a homer pick. I'm just messing with you, actually. Honestly, and Michigan's defense was so good. They have a lot of good players, and a lot of those guys are not going to go in the first couple rounds. They're going to fall. So, I mean, as good as that defense was, I think it should tell you that, there's a chance to pick someone up from Michigan that's a good player. Now, for me, for this pick here, I know there's a chance that the guy I picked last, pick at 73, Abrams-Drain, might fall to 92. But I would also look towards Michael Barrett. He was on my list as potentials. Same thing with Zach Zinter, the guard, right? He's a potential one I might grab here. A guy that I wouldn't mind grabbing here too is J.D. Bertrand, the linebacker out of Notre Dame. I think he has a chance to fall down to 92. And same thing with Javon Foster, the tackle out of Missouri, another Missouri player after I just drafted Chris Abrams-Drain.
Right.
I think they all might be available. But with this pick, I actually went Brendan Rice, wide receiver, USC.
Okay.
He is a 6'3", 210 guy. And what I liked about him was his yards per reception was over 17.
Yeah.
That's huge. He has a low drop rate. And he has a pretty high overall grade against man coverage. So he's able to get open a lot with his route running ability. So that's why I kind of went Brendan Rice at this pick, because just like you said, we're not really sure what's going to happen as far as the wide receivers go. We do need another reliable wide receiver. And
correct.
I'd rather go someone like him that has a low drop rate. And he's a big, tall receiver, which we actually don't really have. So Brendan Rice is my pick here.
Exactly. Well, you and I were kind of thinking similarly, because you just, we know we're going to have Williams. We're going to have St. Brown, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to bring a third guy in, to develop and work into the system. I almost went Eric All, the tight end
out of Iowa.
Yeah,
I've seen him
mostly because of his size and the matchup, right? And having him and
he's your guy.
Laporta, having him and Laporta on my on the team. I mean that those two tight end sets would be deadly.
Yep.
So, and Eric All is not the guy you see typically blocking. He's more of the receiving guy, right? Mm-hmm. But, Laporta is, I think he just size-wise, he'd be the guy. But, yeah, I almost went with an Eric All there.
All right. So, pick 162.
162. So, with this one, Roger Rosengarten. He's an offensive tackle out of Washington. I also picked Jaquan Shepard, the cornerback out of Maryland. So here's where I finally went cornerback, right? Maryland's got those cornerbacks that I like. And I also went Daquan Hardy. He's a cornerback out of Penn State. So that's where I got my picks. So, I finally do go cornerback. It just took me a while to get there. And I think most of my picks, I went more value because some of the players that dropped, not just that they were value picks, but they were also picks of need, right? So it was kind of a toss-up on what I was when I was making my picks.
So I went a little bit of a different direction. I went Charles Turner here, center out of LSU.
Okay.
There's other people I wouldn't mind taking here. One guy is Brennan Jackson. Now, I'm bringing his name up specifically for a reason, so remember Brennan Jackson, all right?
Okay.
But the reason why I went Charles Turner here is, again, he's a center. At times, in very limited plays back in 2021, he actually played tackle. But he's been pretty much a center ever since. And last year in 2023, and a total of 763 snaps, 471 of which was for pass blocking. He only gave up 1 sack, 1 hit, and 7 hurries.
Yeah,
and that's playing in the SEC. So I thought he'd be a pretty good pick here. Again, it's just depth for the offensive line. As my brother stated before, right? I mean, Jonah Jackson, you don't know what's going to go on with him, and we haven't really re-signed Graham Glasgow yet, which I'd like to. And and plus Graham Glasgow was our backup center on top of everything else. So we're going to need an extra interior offensive lineman, and I think he is probably, at least in this draft now, the best offensive lineman that was available. And so I'm pretty happy to get him here.
Yeah. All right.
Pick 206.
All right. Well, again, I went Drake Nugent, interior offensive lineman. So with the mock draft database one, that's my second interior offensive lineman. But Drake Nugent's he's a big boy, right?
Mm-hmm.
On my other one, this is the one I went back to back cornerbacks. I went with Nehemiah Pritchard, cornerback out of Auburn. Hold on. And Mema Njagometa. He's a linebacker out of Wisconsin.
All right. So again, I went slightly different direction, and this is my back-to-back LSU guys. I drafted Omar Speights here, linebacker. Now, when you drafted the one guy out of Clemson, he's very similar in the profile in that he's played on the defensive line, he's played slot, he's even played outside corner on a few snaps. Like, this guy was kind of all over the field. He has pretty good coverage skills, obviously, to be doing something like that. He doesn't have a ton of missed tackles, only 8 on the entire year. So I just think that, again, looking for need and also what talent was there and available at that time when I was picking at 206, I just thought Omar Speights was probably the best available. Now, there's other people I wouldn't mind looking at. Again, Solomon Byrd out of edge rusher at USC. I think he's going to be, pretty decent. Even Frank Gore Jr., if he falls down this low, I know it's another running back, but
right.
When you get this low and you're drafting this late in the draft, I think it's important to draft more of the guys that's going to be able to contribute in some ways more than anything else. And Frank Gore Jr. would be able to contribute at some point in time. So I wouldn't necessarily be against draft running back this late, with pick 206. But
yeah.
Anyways, that's kind of where I went with Omar Speights. So and for pick 246.
For 2 of them, I went with Will Reichert, the kicker out of Alabama, which I know was probably could have picked him up as a undrafted free agent, but wasn't very happy with our kickers.
No, I get that.
So, and Will Reichert, did pretty well at Alabama. And then, actually, 2 of those. And then the last one on my other PFN one was Jordan Strawn, the edge rusher out of South Carolina.
Okay. I mean, we kind of did the same thing here. I also went edge rusher. But if you remember when I was talking about Charles Turner at pick 162, I said I thought about Brennan Jackson there. Well, Brennan Jackson was available to me at 246.
Okay.
And what I like about Brennan Jackson is he has a pretty high pass rush win rate at almost 12%. In addition, his run defense is actually pretty good as an edge rusher as well. He's a pretty decent size at 6'4", 264. And he actually had 9 sacks last year playing for the Washington State Cougars.
Okay.
So, I mean, again, I just thought that he has the chance to be, at least a contributor. In some ways. Maybe just bring him in on some pass rushing down, something like that, but I think has a chance to be, and trying to get a contributor with your 246 pick, hey, I'll take it. So.
Yeah, considering there's only 10 picks left in the draft, right?
Right, yeah.
And so with our draft, Detroit's in an unusual position this year.
Drafting so late?
Because they're drafting so late.
Yeah.
Right? Which is why, like, with the PFN one, it was very tempting for me to want to take because we didn't do any trades.
No.
Right? But it was very tempting for me to want to take, because one of them I got offered like 4 picks to move up. So I think we were giving up the 29 and like what was the number? 29 and 92, I think, for one of them. And we were going to get, the 4 picks, but we picked up a pick in the middle round there in that 4th round where we don't have anything.
Right.
Right. So that's why it was very tempting for me to want to do that. But I know that wasn't one of the things that we wanted to do for this specific draft. Because I
No.
did do that, and yesterday I did it. I think we ended up with like 25 draft picks, and I picked up like 5 extra drafts or 5 extra picks for next year.
Yeah, the way that the trade works is really ridiculous, honestly. So that's why I don't really like doing it, anyways. But I mean, you are right, though, right? I mean, going from pick 92 to 162, that's 70 picks. That's huge. And then on top of that, going from 162 to 206, that's 44 more picks. And then 206 to 246, another 40 picks. There's a lot of space between there. And I do see at some point Lions trading down to try to fill some of those gaps in.
Yeah. All right. Like we had, I mean, with the pick that I was looking at, or the trade I wanted to do, it was pick. We were going to get 75, 106, and 132, I believe. Right? So it just filled in a little bit in that stuff. And I just felt like, that's where we need to be. And I think if there's not a guy there at the first round, if we don't trade up to try and do something, right, to get a guy that they think they want, Brad Holmes has never done that. He's typically, well, no, I guess he did. He traded.
He traded for Jamo. And, and last year, didn't he trade up for Branch last year? Or did Branch fall?
Branch fell to the second round, but I can't remember if we traded up to get him.
I thought there was someone this last past draft we traded up for as well to get.
Right.
Like, I think 6 slots or something.
Yeah. It was either Campbell or Gibbs, because we traded back.
Well, we traded back, and Gibbs was there with that pick. Campbell we not trade up for, because that was our normal, that was a second first-round pick.
Had to be Branch.
Yeah, I think it was Branch.
But if they find the guy that they want, I think that's what they're gonna do. I just don't know that Sydney at 29 is gonna be. I like the idea of maybe trading back. If you don't get a first round, you pick up a second rounder, maybe a fourth rounder, at least.
Yeah, I'm okay trading back. It all depends on who's there at the time. Like if Kool-Aid McKinstry falls or one of the other, top 3 corners fall, no, I'm not trading back. I'm taking them.
Well, when you look at, hold on, the second round. So like Patriots or the Cardinals, right? If they want to trade back in because they're at 34 or 35, to trade up to get a guy thinking, to get who they want.
Mm-hmm.
Because in this mock draft with PFN, they got Bo Nix going to the Patriots and with pick 34. But I say that just because if they, if they're afraid for whatever reason they need to go get somebody and they're going to trade up, then they'll trade up. But it's going to be one of those teams, I think, from 33 to 36 that are going to want to trade back into the first round.
Yeah, very well could be. But yeah, I wouldn't be again. I would not be against trading back, but not if there's not the guys there that I want. I'd even be interested in, again, depending on which guy fell. But if someone's in spot like say 25, 26 with the Packers, Buccaneers, something like that, I'd even be tempted to trade up to get that cornerback that I want.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I just don't want to see them try to get up in the top 15.
No, I don't think they will. But I agree. I wouldn't want to see that either.
Yeah,
I don't want to give up that much right now.
Right. We've done so well with our draft picks anyway. Mm-hmm. I mean, in this mock draft, they had Williams and May went 1 and 2. Jaden Daniels went 7. JJ McCarthy went 13. Right? And then Bo Nix went at 34. So that's the top 5 quarterbacks, right? But because of that extra, the way things fell, you just, like Marvin Harrison fell all the way to 5. I'm like, seriously? Marvin Harrison is not the number 5 pick in like, not for me, not for what he can contribute to your team, but that's just how things fell, right? But yeah, you never know what you're gonna get when that time comes. That's why you got to have like 6 or 7, 8 names per pick, and I hope that hey, this guy's gonna be here.
Right. Yeah. So, at any rate, you guys are the judges. You let us know whose draft won. I'll just go through mine real quick. Kool-Aid McKinstry, Chris Jenkins, Chris Abrams-Drain, Brendan Rice, Charles Turner, Omar Spites, and Brennan Jackson.
All right, and I'm gonna just give you. We'll go with this one. So, mine, Byron Murphy, Cooper Beebe, Jeremiah Trotter, Chris Jenkins, Jaquan Shepard, Nehemiah Pritchard, and Will Reichard.
Oh yeah, I win totally.
It is.
All right. Hopefully this was fun. Let us know. And we got some more stuff coming, obviously. So follow and don't miss anything.
Absolutely. See you guys later.
All right. See you guys.
Turn that off. It's time for No Pad Sports Talk. Stay tuned as two brothers bring you the latest from your Michigan teams and beyond in hockey, baseball, football, and more. Let's get started. Here are your hosts, JD and Steve. Thanks for listening to No Pads Sports Talk. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, help spread the word by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on social media at No Pads Sports Talk.